Hey everybody, we're back again. Man, the do-over, the mulligan. That's what we're gonna call this episode. Dave Altavilla here for HotHardware's 2.5 Geeks. Thanks for joining us. I have with me yet again, Marco Chiappetta, Paul Lilly. Chris is here too. He's on the mixing board doing his magic in the background. And today we're streaming. Damn it.
Seems to be. We'll make sure that holds true.
Oh, wait a minute. Actually, Chris is not just in the background. He's actually on screen with us, too. So that's good. It's a foursome. And, yeah, it does. Everything looks smooth, buddy. Thanks for setting that up. How you guys doing, Marco? How's it going over there in Connecticut?
It's a rainy, gloomy day, but I'm checking out the live stream, and it looks cool. It's like an evolution of goatee to beard as you go around the four squares there.
Wow, I just noticed that. Yeah, man, I'm the only mostly clean-shaven one. Wow, Paul, how's the Billy Goat doing over there, brother?
It's doing well. You can say the same about the hairline up there. Kind of, if you start the bottom right, it recedes more and more.
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that in public, Paul.
Oh, Paul, wait a minute. You're going to talk like that. You're going to take off the fedora, brother. We know what's hiding underneath there. Not a lot, like the rest of us. That's all right. Chris, on the other hand. Chris, yeah, Chris, you're the mountain man, for God's sakes, comparatively.
It's the main air.
Yeah, something in the water up there. They grow those follicles well. Well, welcome back, everybody. Sorry yesterday if you tuned in to the live stream and you missed us. Unfortunately, the gods weren't with us, but the technical difficulties are ironed out and out of the way. And today we will journey forth with the 2.5 Geeks webcast for May 25th, Thursday, almost Friday. Feels like almost Friday, I'll tell you that. But lots going on in the tech scene, lots to discuss in the PC enthusiast space, certainly, as well as mobile technologies and even a little bit of gaming. So without further ado, let's just dive right in head first. Marco has been looking at EVGA's Geforce GTX Ti SC2 gaming, a custom Geforce 1080 Ti with some extra bells and whistles, Marco, right?
Yeah, actually, really, really cool card. So at the core, and the full name is the EVGA Geforce GTX 1080 Ti SC2, that's super clocked 2 with ICX technology. So at the core, this card is obviously a Geforce GTX 1080 Ti. Same GPU as NVIDIA's Founders Edition, same number of active cores, same 11 gigabytes of memory. But there's tons of customizations on this card. So what EVGA has done, in addition to factory overclocking it, the GPU has a base clock of 1556 and a boost clock of up to 1670 megahertz. But the PCB itself, it has 9 sensors in total incorporated, plus custom cooling, slight tweaks to the output. This card actually has DVI, whereas NVIDIA's Founders Edition does not. And what EVGA allows customers to do is basically actively monitor the card in multiple areas with actual real-time health data. Most other GPUs, you just get GPU temp from the sensor built into the GPU itself. With this card, there's sensors in the VRM and around the memory area, so the dual fans can throttle accordingly based on actual temperatures, not estimates based on the GPU temp alone. It's a really, really cool card.
Nice. So dialed in with lots of different sensors and temperature gauges and all that good stuff. On the performance side, how does it stack up there? I mean, obviously you've got a lot of control and a lot of monitoring capability, which is great for the enthusiast that does some, crazy setup in their rig that they want to, make sure they're dialing in on that card and what it's doing. But how's the performance shake out versus stock or, Founders Edition or other custom cool cards?
So across the board, this is going to be faster than a Founders Edition because it's higher clocked. Now, with that said, this is not the highest clocked custom GeForce out there. In fact, it's not even EVGA's highest clocked GeForce GTX 1080 Ti. So versus a Founders Edition, you're talking 3, 5, 8% faster than a Founders Edition. But versus, let's say, the Gigabyte Aorus card that we reviewed a few weeks prior to this, the EVGA card is clocked a little bit lower. So There was a couple of corner cases where the EVGA card seemed to be turboing longer, and it just kind of nudged past the Gigabyte card. But overall, the Gigabyte card is faster, again, because of the higher clocks. Now, but we're talking minuscule differences, though. So technically, it's slightly slower than a higher clock card, but we're talking, fractions of a frame per second sometimes, 1-2%. Whereas the advantages that you get from the ICX technology, I think personally sort of offset that. Lots of other cards throttle their fans based solely on GPU temp, and the GPU may not even be the hottest part of the card any longer as they've gotten more efficient. So your VRM might be hotter. And to throttle the fan speed based on the GPU when the VRM is actually hotter just doesn't make a lot of sense. Whereas EVGA can dynamically adjust both fans based on actual temps. And this card is only, this typical dual slot form factor. It runs really cool, even when overclocked. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it barely broke 70C. And it overclocked over 2 gigahertz, just like the other custom cards. So if you're willing to tweak, minimal differences in performance, but way more advantages in terms of, hardware health data and stuff to tinker with.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the overclock section now, and it looks like you've got a fair bit of headroom. Is the cooling solution that much? Is it more robust? I mean, I know out of the box, like stock speed, you're saying it's a little bit more tame, perhaps, than some of the custom cards out there. But do you have more headroom regardless?
So I think you do. I think what EVGA did, this card was actually, even though it's 2 fans versus 3 fans on the Gigabyte card. With the 2 fans, it was actually a little bit louder than the Gigabyte card. I think because EVGA is being somewhat more aggressive with the fan curve to keep temperatures lower to maintain higher boost clocks. So if I'm looking at the chart here, GPU temp, under the typical chart here, it did something like 54 degrees max when it wasn't being overclocked. Like, that's nothing. So it runs nice and cool, and it's not silent, but it's quiet. So it's, the cooler is very efficient.
So overclocked and under load, it's running 54 degrees?
No, so overclocked under load, it looks like it peaked at 67 degrees, which is cool. That's nothing crazy.
Right.
But there's GPU temp 1, GPU temp 2. There's multiple sensors. The highest GPU sensor was 67.
Nice. That's not bad at all. So La Royale in the chat asks, which 1080 Ti brand, Asus, EVGA, etc., is better for OCing in your opinion? Tough question.
Yeah, I think it's easy to answer. Now, if you want the best, absolute best for OCing, you want the card with the most robust VRM and the biggest cooler. So the Gigabyte and Asus triple slot cards will technically be better. However, they're all of these custom cards that I've seen are going over 2 gigahertz, and some of them are going 2 gigahertz plus 25 megahertz, 2050 megahertz. You're talking 25 to maybe 75 megahertz difference, which is really nothing.
Yeah.
So it depends. If you have unlimited budget, go for one of those giant monsters. If you don't, you're probably fine with something like this. It's still a fantastic graphics card. It just may not be the absolute pinnacle of craziness when you're overclocking.
750.
To add to your point too, it's not necessarily brand that you'll be looking at. It's the specific model of card, because all these guys are pretty good at their third-party cooling solutions, and when they do the custom cards for overclocking, they're all pretty good. So
yeah, they're all definitely good. And if you're with one of the well-known brands, EVGA, Asus, MSI, Gigabyte, if you're with one of those well-established known brands, you're safe. You're going to have fun overclocking.
Do you have a favorite right now? Custom 1080 Ti that you've seen?
I've only seen 3, and I am going to build myself a new rig. I'm going to put the Gigabyte card in there because it looks vicious from the side.
It's just a looks thing. That's all, though, right?
Yeah, it's just because I'm not going to overclock it. I'm going to leave it stock. So I'm going to just put the one that looks craziest through the window.
But this, if you're a knobs and dials freak and you want to see every little bit of vital signs out of the card, this is the one to have, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody has features like EVGA's ICX technology right now.
Sexy ICX, you almost said, right?
It is sexy ICX.
It is a little, yeah, in a geek sort of way.
Yeah.
Paul, would you spend $750 for a GPU? That's what this thing goes for.
I would if I was in the market for one. It's all relative. I mean, if you're trying to game it at 4K, you kind of have to spend more. I mean, you can get away with it on a 1080, but you really need a 1080 Ti to be comfortable in 4K. And then next to a Titan XP, it's almost half the price. So in that regard, there's some value proposition.
Yeah, that little shuffle that NVIDIA did there, coming out with the Titan X and Titan X Pascal, and then the 1080 Ti follow on, and everybody's like, oh, if you bought a Titan X, you're probably kind of kicking yourself. But Chris,
I guess the bigger question for either one of you, would you buy, if you're in the market for graphics cards, would you get a 1080 Ti, or would you wait to see what shakes out with Vega?
That's a tough one.
There's always something better on the horizon. So if you're looking to game and have fun, I would buy a 1080 Ti. Plus, the rumors are shaping up to be Vega's probably not going to catch 1080 Ti across the board. And this kind of stuff, like these high-end cards, if you don't wait too long, you can sort of buy it now at $750, game on it for 6 months, and sell it for $650. So, if you're adventurous, go for it.
Yeah. Chris, would you step in for that kind of cake?
Yeah. So I think, what are all your thoughts on actual resolution? Will you take 4K 60 hertz, or do you prefer something like 1440p at 144 hertz?
That's another tough question. I'm actually pondering that right now because I have a new Nixius monitor, FreeSync monitor that I'm testing right now. And I have a 4K screen in front of me, but it's one of the older 4K screens that require MST, and it's a pain in the stones. Like the latest AMD drivers, I can't disable VSync, so it's like, crap. I have to deal with lag right now. So I sort of would like to get rid of the headaches associated with 4K, scaling in Windows, needing all that horsepower. It almost would be a better experience with the lower res and higher refresh rate. And I love the higher refresh rate, even in Windows, just for smooth mouse movements and stuff.
Yeah.
But tough call because I'm also a pixel snob.
I tell you, I'll answer that question wholeheartedly. And it's because I have a really nice 1440p monitor now. It's the Acer Predator 34. It is a G-Sync monitor, excuse me, that wasn't quite in the tip of my tongue. G-Sync enabled panel. It is 100 hertz capable, so I'm running 1340 by 1440, and I've seen 4K. I've got a 4K panel in the test bed here. I do not miss 4K in the least. It's a beautiful panel. 100 hertz is buttery, and I don't get a chance to game enough, but that's my answer. Frame rate first. And with all the eye candy you can turn on with anti-aliasing and all that good stuff, the post processing you can do with the imagery, I think it's a no-brainer to go a little bit faster frame rate and hold off from 4K right now. 4K is great if you're doing a lot of work and you need a lot of screen real estate, I think. I don't know about gaming. I'm not quite sold for 4K gaming personally.
We have one more question from La Royale asking should he buy IPS at 144 hertz or is TN okay? Personally, spring for the IPS.
Yeah.
The viewing angles are better, color reproduction is better. Everything about it is better. I find even with the better TN panels, even uniformity is not quite as good. So if you're willing to live with the imperfections, save the money. But if you have the budget, absolutely get IPS.
Yep. Anybody else have any more advice on that? These are all good questions, La Royale. Good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that too is going to depend on if you're doing content creation, if you're doing photo editing that needs the color accuracy, if you're maybe watching movies with other people and you can't just be looking at it straight on, definitely go for the IPS. If you're really just gaming, you're playing shooters, you don't necessarily care that your colors are perfect and everything is glorious, you can get away with a TN, sure. But IPS is really nice. Really nice.
Yeah. Yep. Good stuff. All right. Well, let's move along to the mobile side of things. And we'll talk about a couple of devices I've actually got in house. One I just posted actually both of them I posted a review on. If you stop by the site for Marco's review of the EVGA GTX 1080 Ti SC2. By the way, that is there. You can see all the gory details, the good gory details. But on the mobile side, I've been taking a look at a couple of thin and lights lately. The first that's of note that I found interesting was Samsung's Galaxy Book 12. This is a answer to, or I should say a competitive alternative to the Microsoft Surface Book, or Surface Pro 4, excuse me. It's a detachable 12-inch slate. So let's talk about this a little bit. I'll hold it up for the camera. So there it is. It is a full 12-inch full OLED display. See if I can get up a little bit higher for you. Boy, that's going to blow out the screen too. OLED display and 2160 by 1440 QHD resolution. Really nice display. If you've seen OLED before, you'll know that it is absolutely one of the best. What are you pointing at?
I was trying to touch it.
If you've seen OLED, it's absolutely one of the best panel technologies, period, for I think for mobile devices. Certainly for handsets, for smartphones, there's nothing that compares. As screens get bigger, there are issues with OLED, but in a 12-inch form factor, I think OLED plays very well. And so let's take this out of its panel, and you can see this is, or excuse me, out of the keyboard dock. You can see this is every bit a 12-inch tablet. Okay, this is a 1.5 pound device, but what's interesting about it is it's got full Intel 15-watt Core i5 7200U 15-watt Kaby Lake dual core processor on board. So 3.1 gigahertz top end clock speed, 8 gig of RAM. It does have an M2 SATA SSD on board. This is a PC, basically a full PC and a 1.5 inch tablet. And so really impressive what you can get in for technology these days under the hood of a 1.5 pound device like this, coupled with a beautiful OLED display. It really is a compelling device. A little pricey, $1129 base, and I believe that's 128 gig SSD versus 256 in this one, which is the one I tested. 256 gig SSD, $1329 for that. So it's definitely a higher end device. And the other thing is the keyboard is. It's very convenient. It works well. Nice attachment mechanism, magnetized connector here, snaps right in and holds well. And the trackpad is actually impressively good, very accurate. The keys are decent, good tactile response. The only problem here that I had with this that I was, I'll try and get up a little higher, but the 4 box is tough to work with. But it's a full plastic. Material. It's all plastic all around. There's no like textured surface like you'd get in the Surface keyboard. So a little bit more of a plasticky feel with that. Not quite as premium as the rest of the tablet, and for the price tag. But it's a well-equipped slate. It also has a pair of USB Type-C full Thunderbolt ports on this side. It has micro SD for expansion and dual speakers, which actually stereo speakers on the top edge of each side, which, their location is ideal because they're out of the way. Your hand isn't going to muffle them. And so the setup's really nice. Wish the keyboard was a little bit more premium. Samsung does include it with the package along with an S Pen. So that price I mentioned, $1129 or $1329, that's inclusive of everything with the S Pen as well. So you get a lot. You're going to pay a bit. But yeah, no, it's a good device. I was impressed with it. Marco, what are your thoughts? You took a look at this a little bit. I know you have some opinions on these. These are your kind of machines.
Yeah, I love this small, super light, ultra portable machines. I'm not, completely thrilled with the detachables. Someone my size, for example, I have a Surface Pro 3. And I can't really use it well on my lap because the kickstand kind of hangs off my knees. My arms are too long. And it just doesn't work well on my lap. and even on in an airplane on the tray table, to push it all the way back, the kickstand falls off the back of the tray, and the thing won't stay up, so you end up propping it on something else, sticking a magazine under it or something. So for me personally, I prefer the clamshell form factor for portability if I'm getting work done on the road. If it's going to be used on a desk, they're great, super light, machines with really, especially with something like that with a nice screen, they're really nice to work with. But if you're not going to be on the table constantly, I probably steer people more towards a notebook design.
Yeah, if you're sacking out, if you're on the couch with this thing, you're gonna end up putting it in tablet mode. You're not gonna be banging away in the keyboard as much. Putting this in your lap, or lapability, to use a term, isn't the best with this type of thing, and it's not that great with the Surface either. I don't think I've seen. Have you a detachable 2-in-1 that can really cut laptop, or I should say, lap setup usage, Marco? Have you seen something that does that? Well, I haven't.
Nothing that uses a kickstand.
Yeah.
For me personally. The Surface Book, yes, because that's rigid.
Yeah, I guess the Surface Book is detachable, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
It is, but it's rigid. There's no kickstand.
And you're talking about probably almost at least 2.5 pound device in that case. Mm-hmm. This is this technically without the keyboard is 1.5 pounds. Might even be with. I'd have to see what the total is. It might be 1.5 pounds with the keyboard.
That was a Core i7 or Core i5? What's in there?
Core i5 7200U.
Gotcha.
So, what's interesting is, you get, 3.1 gigahertz top end clock speed, 8 gig of RAM. It feels like a PC, but from a performance standpoint, but from a tactility standpoint, it feels like a tablet. It's really an interesting device. I think that's why they're selling like hotcakes, or I should say, the detachable market is doing so well. 2-in-1 detachables are big business these days, and I think it's because people really like the super light with that kind of horsepower that they're getting in there.
Yep. So we actually have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Chris. A question from Winter in the chat that she wants to. Sorry, I'm assuming it's a she. Wants to upgrade a 2-year-old HP Spectra X360 that has a Core i7 to something like the Galaxy Book, and would it be an upgrade? So versus your particular machine, it would not be an upgrade. Right. So if you're looking to actually notice for a noticeable upgrade, you're going to want something also with a Core i7 and with NVMe storage. Those two things, a Kaby Lake i7 with NVMe storage, those would give you the kind of upgrades where you probably notice increasing snappiness with better battery life. But you have a pretty high-end machine there. To say something is clearly an upgrade, you're going to have to spend some big bucks.
Yeah. Yeah, the X360 is a nice machine, especially I don't know what version of the i7 you're running there, Winter, but that's a pretty potent little machine, and the X360 with that 360 hinge, it's not a detachable, but it is a convertible. Probably not as convenient if you really want that tablet functionality as something like the Samsung Book, but the Galaxy Book, but that's a pretty high performance machine if I recall.
Yeah, she's on Haswell, so Kaby Lake would be an upgrade. So something like a Surface Book would be an upgrade for you. Or the latest X360 would be an upgrade, or even the Dell XPS 13, fantastic little machine, which is what most of us here would probably buy. But you have a pretty high-end machine there, Winter.
Yeah, that's notebook versus detachable. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of a different animal there.
Now, is that
Paul,
Oh, sorry.
What's that?
The S
No, go ahead.
Is it pressure sensitive, or is it just kind of on off?
So it is pressure sensitive. It has 4,096 degrees or points of accuracy, and it has all of the S Pen functionality that if you're familiar with Samsung's S Pen technology, which is actually one of the better implementations of pen technology out there. It has Air Command. That whole little interface that they built for it, which is really nice for, screen capture and notation and things like that. It has that button that actuates it on the side, and it doesn't need charging. So it uses magnetic induction is the technology that it uses. So as you get the pen close to the display, it instantly starts charging again. And so it's nice. It comes with the tablet, whereas, if you looked at a competitive, let's say Apple product, you'd pay, $99 for the pencil in an iPad Pro. And oh, by the way, this is running a full OS, full Windows 10 OS that you get, not only the Microsoft Store, but any x86 Windows app to run on it. So yeah, there's the pen in action there. And so yeah, it's a good little solution. A little bit pricey. I think you're going to see, now that Microsoft has announced a Surface refresh for the original Surface Pro 4. I think you're going to see some competitive jockeying from a price standpoint. So maybe it makes sense to sit out and see how that dust settles, because there's going to be some competition there. There's a couple of offerings coming to the market in the detachable space. But Marco, actually, to your point, we'll talk about the next thing real quick. This is probably a machine more up your alley. This is the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Carbon. This is the latest version, 2017. I just took a look at this. The review's up on the site now. Let me see if I can get it in front of the camera a little bit more. I'll have to get rid of my face, but you don't care about that. You care about hardware. So yeah, this is a 14-inch laptop, Intel Kaby Lake Core i7. I'm trying to think what the number is. I think it's a 7300U. I'll have to take a look at what the SKU is. But Kaby Lake Core i7, 8 gig of RAM as well, 256 gig Samsung PM961 NVMe SSD. And the whole hook with this is fully redesigned from a standpoint of size optimization. So what they did was they took a page from the thin bezel playbook, and they trimmed down bezels on all three sides of the panel. And I should say four, actually. Down by the underneath, it's probably trimmed down a little bit as well. But really on the two side edges, you see it's very thin. And what are you smiling at now?
No, it's nothing related to us. It's something that popped up on my screen.
I see Marco smiling, and I wonder what's going on devious in the background. But they did trim down the top bezel a little bit, but not so much that you lose the camera up there like you do with Dell's XPS 13, for example. So that camera stays up on the top edge of the screen, and so optimal location with the webcam. So it's a little bit thinner up top, but actually there's a good AB there. Next to the ThinkPad X1 Yoga, which sits on Lenovo's previous generation frame, you can see those two displays. The Yoga, by the way, on the left is OLED, and that's gorgeous. The X1 Carbon on the right is IPS, standard IPS, but as you can see, the previous generation frame, it's much smaller, about an inch shorter, and about a half an inch shallower, from a depth standpoint than the Yoga. But it's the same panel, same size panel, I should say, 14-inch. One's OLED. I wish they had an OLED option for the X1 Carbon. That would be totally hot. I'd be like all over it. It would be my daily driver in a second. I like the X1 Yoga because of the OLED display. It does have a 360-degree hinge too. That's kind of nice. But if you want to optimize surface area, this machine really does a nice job of it. Gets it down to, basically a 13-inch form factor, 14-inch display. That is the ThinkPad X1 Carbon. You guys,
machine.
Yeah, is this more up your alley, Marco?
It is definitely. I'm just commenting on someone in the chat. My buddy Dave has a question. Dave, if you're still watching, hang on for the next segment when we talk about next gen GPUs, and I'll answer your question directly. But yeah, Dave, to get to your question, that is definitely my type of machine. Shrinking those bezels, getting the bigger screen in that smaller form factor is exactly what I like in something rigid like that. So the Carbon is beautiful in my opinion.
Chris, you saw the previous gen version of this and the Yoga actually as well. I commented to you the other day that it's built really well. It's definitely more rigid all around. Certainly around the keyboard and palm rest area, it's much more rigid. There's less flex. So I think they've taken some notes there from
Definitely.
Guys like you as well.
Yeah, it sounds like they shored up a lot of my complaints, which was the flex in the keyboard. It just kind of had a creak to it before. Seems like they've shored that up. The screen looks a bit brighter now. Again, that was a complaint. Yep. And the battery life, which was pretty bad before. Now it looks a lot better.
Battery life is actually awesome with this machine. It's one of the top performers, and we have a big database of these kind of ultrabooks and thin and lights in the HotHardware database. So stop by and check out the review. Battery life is improved. I will say they haven't been listening too much on the SD card, the micro SD card. It's back here on the back edge. You have to shut the lid to get at it. So, whenever you're using your machine and just when you think you want to go pop in a micro SD card, you got to shut the lid and basically power down your machine to get at it. Not the most convenient setup. You probably could, if you really worked to keep the lid up, you probably could figure it out, but it's wicked tough to get at. I would prefer to see that slot on the side edge, but they put it back here in the back. So.
Well, that's because Chris hasn't complained about it. Just you did. So.
Right. Who cares? They don't listen to me. They listen to Chris, clearly.
I've got the battery numbers up on the screen now. You can see it's really second only to the XPS 13 2-in-1. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, so that's Battery Eater Pro, what you're looking at there, and that is our worst case scenario. If you scroll to the video test that you custom coded yourself there, brother. As you can see, that machine it took the number one spot by a long shot. And so what you're dealing with here actually in some of the differences versus the other notebooks you see in that chart, you've got a 1920 by 1080p display. So it's 1080p resolution, a little bit lower end resolution than say some of the 3K and 4K displays on that chart, the QHD displays. From a performance and a battery life standpoint, it's excellent. That PM961 SSD pushes like 3 gigs a second read and a gig and a half writes in a notebook. So that feels snappy as heck.
Right. And for my money on a Ultrabook, I care about the battery life more than I care about the screen resolution. So 1080p is perfectly gravy for me. 4K is really nice to look at until the screen scaling goofs up, and then you can't read what's in front of you without a magnifying glass. And that's no fun.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. Someone that used to write for us years ago, a guy named Jeff, just bought a Surface Book, and he can't use Outlook because he's up there in age like me, and he can't see the font in Outlook.
His ears are burning now too.
So, that's what happens when you have a physically small screen with a super high res, and the scaling isn't great in certain apps. You can't see anything. So.
Yeah. No, I think in a 13 or 14 inch machine, 1080p is fine personally.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
When you get up to a 15 or a 17, if that's the size machine you like, a higher, 3 or 4K display might be of interest if you get some big iron work to do maybe, but or gaming. But Paul, you like them big. You like those big boat anchor notebooks.
I'm into the big gaming laptop. I still like the 17-inch form factor, which nobody else likes anymore, but I like them.
Do those still exist?
Oh yeah, dude! The Alienware is making a killing with it. Look at! I got to mention it. And there's my T-shirt. No, as a matter of fact, I'm looking at the Alienware 17, which arrived with this T-shirt, KB Lake with GeForce 1060 or 70 maybe even. So that's coming up. Stay tuned for that review. But let's shift gears. Let's shift gears to. Do we want to cover? Do we want to go back to Dave's question, or do we want to shift gears to the Nintendo Switch first? Where do we want to go?
So I'll answer Dave's question, even though it sort of would apply for the AMD segment. So Dave's actually a longtime friend of mine. Used to copy Commodore 64 games with him in the 80s. Nice. So it shows you how long ago we were geeking out. But so he's running a Core i5 overclocked to 4.5 gigahertz with a 770, and asking if is now a good time to upgrade or if he should wait. And he's also considering 144 hertz display. So the 144 hertz display, I would jump on that whenever you see a good deal, because you're going to enjoy that no matter what card you have in the system. Even if your card can't hit those frame rates, having the higher frame rate, even in Windows, is just so buttery smooth. It's awesome. Now, with the i9s coming and Volta coming, I don't think you're going to see a consumer Volta for a while, maybe for the holidays at the earliest. So the i9s and AMD ThreadRipper are going to come sooner. So if you're looking to upgrade, I would definitely wait until ThreadRipper and the i9s hit, because I have a feeling you're going to be able to get many more cores for not a lot more money. In terms of graphics, wait to see what happens when AMD's Vega hits, because I have a feeling they're going to be price aggressive, which may push the prices of 1080 and lower cards down a little bit. I don't think it's going to catch the 1080 Ti. I may be wrong, but I think it's going to push the price down on the other cards. So if you can wait a few more weeks, end of summer, back to school season-ish, I think you'll get a better deal on the graphics side. So the 7700K i9, I believe that is also 6-core. I don't remember what the leak said. I'm pretty sure you're going to see 6, 8, 10, and 12 cores, and maybe higher. I don't know. And on ThreadRipper, you're going to see up to 16 cores. So plus new platforms. So the latest platform and motherboards. In my opinion, those will be worth waiting for just to lay the foundation for future upgrades. So if you're not dying to upgrade, and I doubt you would be if you're running at 4.5 gigahertz with Sandy Bridge, just wait a little more. Wait till like end of summer, back to school season, and see where things fall.
Yeah. We've got a leak, a news leak up on the front page right now. Intel 10-core Skylake X Core i9 7900X suggests 4 gigahertz base clock, 4.5 gigahertz turbo on the 10-core. So that's a 10-core 20-thread.
And as far as he's asking if the quad cores, the price might drop. I think the quad cores price are probably going to drop a little for 2 reasons. Ryzen 5 is kicking ass, and there's a next-gen stuff coming. So, yeah. I think everything's there's not going to be a price war in the CPU segment, but the CPU segment's definitely going to heat up before the end of summer.
There you go. Yeah. I would say you're right.
You'll probably see some good sales too as they bring the new stuff in.
Yeah.
As they look to clear out the existing inventory.
There you go. Yeah. Now Marco and I are on planes, trains, and automobiles too much.
Yeah, like there's
lately.
only so much we can say right now. Yeah, there's literally stuff happening in desktop CPUs and in server CPUs and in mobile CPUs, and it's all gonna hit quickly. Yeah. And it's going to shake things up. So it's definitely worth waiting a few weeks.
Yeah. Good stuff.
There's only one scene from that movie I remember, and I don't want to picture you guys like that. So.
Yeah, I'm not going there either. That is imagery I care not to think about.
That's tough to wipe away.
Oh man! All right. Well, Paul, since you're piping in wise guy that you are, let's talk about one of your articles. You actually took a look at the Nintendo Switch, which is perhaps a little bit off the beaten path for us, but gaming of all sorts is always near and dear to our hearts. Nintendo getting their mojo back these days with the ability to without having to soup up a console with a ton of horsepower and making it expensive and complex and complicated, it manages to build a machine yet again that is just plain fun to play, right?
That's exactly right. Nintendo's kind of interesting in that the past few generations they've been seeking out a gimmick that's actually useful, not just gimmicky. And it worked really well with the Wii. That was, their best-selling console. And then not so well with the Wii U, their follow-up. And for this generation with the Switch, they went the hybrid route where the pitch is you can game on the device itself while you're on the go and with other people, or you can slap it in a dock and game on your big screen TV, just like the other guys, like the Xbox One or PlayStation 4. The difference is they're not engaging in a specs war with Microsoft and Sony. If you look at the specs on this thing, it has a built-in 6.2-inch LCD, which is just regular high-definition 720p. If you put it in the dock, you can game it up to 1080p if the game supports that. It's powered by an NVIDIA Tegra X1 SoC, which is based on last-generation Maxwell architecture. And it has 4 gigabytes of RAM. So, the specs aren't anything that's really to brag about as far as compared to what the other guys are doing. But the actual gameplay is where they sell you on this. And it's, I was kind of skeptical going into this whether I'd really care because I myself got caught up on the specs. But I have to say, after playing with it, it actually is pretty fun. You load up Zelda on there. It doesn't have the same graphical punch as some of the AAA PC games or console games, But you don't notice that as you're playing because they're focused so much on the actual gameplay element. I mean, it's a nice open adventure game where you're wandering the landscape and you really get immersed in what you're doing. If there's a real criticism that I have for it, it's two. One is the built-in storage. It only comes with 32 gigabyte of internal storage, part of which goes towards the OS and other junk. And if you're going to be downloading games from their digital store or saving other content, you're going to chew through that really fast. Some of the games that are available even take up more than the built-in storage. So you're looking at having to buy expandable storage. It does have a micro SD card, but that's, it's an added cost on top of the console. And the second criticism I'd have for it is the all-in cost. You start off at $300, right? That's assuming you can find one in stock right now. I mean, this thing is crazy popular. But after that, there's some, I covered this in the review as well, there's some things that I would consider essential. Like if you're going to be doing a lot of traveling with this, you're going to want to get a carrying case. You're going to want to get a screen protector so you don't ding up the screen. And like I said, the memory card. If you want to charge the Joy-Con controllers without attaching them to the actual console itself, Nintendo sells a separate Joy-Con charger. And then there's a Pro controller and there's some other stuff. So you start off at $300, but you can easily spend, between $400 and $500 between the console and different accessories. And then, of course, you have the cost of the games itself. So for me, that's kind of a tall order for a console with last gen hardware. And it's kind of a mobile first console and living room console second. But it is, you can't deny that it is fun to play on it. And if you want to play games that feature characters like Mario or Donkey Kong or any of Nintendo's IP, you have to get a Nintendo console. You're not going to play that on the Xbox One or PlayStation 4. So that's where Nintendo's strength is at, I think.
How are those Joy-Con controllers? So when you have it in dock mode, you obviously optimally you're not playing with those little Joy-Con controllers. You're using another controller, right?
Well, you'd have to either buy the Pro controller, which is $70,
right?
Or you would use the Joy-Con controller. It does come with a dummy grip.
That's right. Yeah.
That it doesn't charge the controllers, but it does work well. I thought when you attach the Joy-Con controllers to that, to me that was fairly comfortable. A lot more so than trying to just hold the controllers separately because they're a bit small. And if you have bigger hands, it's really going to be a nuisance. But the dummy grip does work well. It's just unfortunate that it doesn't charge it as well, because that would have been neat if Nintendo would have included that.
So 720p gaming, how's it look on the TV on the big screen?
It looks pretty well. I mean, like I said, it's not going to compete with consoles that are focused on lots of shading effects and water reflection and that sort of thing. But as far as, there's not a lot of games really to compare right now anyway. But as far as in Zelda, you can notice that the colors are somewhat saturated here and there. But that's only if you stop and really scrutinize the visuals. If you're playing the game, I mean, the gameplay is so fun and the landscape is open. You're immersed in it, and the graphics, to me, weren't a detraction.
Nice. Yeah, Zelda's like, getting rave reviews, and Nintendo has sold these things. The Switch by the pallet load. They have outshipped the Wii when it first shipped. Right at this point.
Well, what's interesting about Zelda, too, is it's available for the Wii U as well and the Switch, but just for the Switch alone, Zelda has outsold the actual console. So they're seeing a slightly better than 1-to-1 attach rate. So basically, everybody who gets a Switch buys Zelda, and then you have some people that buy Zelda in anticipation of getting the Switch down the road. Yeah.
Definitely an interesting family machine. Again, Nintendo, they have some sort of special mojo going on because, you look at this and they're not playing the specs, performance, big iron console for lack of better words, war with Microsoft and Sony, going to battle toe to toe with the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4, but they have garnered a following, a passionate brand equity that that's on the level of like Apple, where people are waiting outside the stores in queues. There's pent up demand. I think they play that angle a little bit, obviously, but it's impressive what they've been able to do. Their marketing and their approach to the market, and the fact that people are buying this in droves, and are satisfied with it. They're enjoying it. They're having fun. It's not necessarily about all the eye candy and the high performance hardware. It's about making games and a platform for games that's just fun to play. Right.
And imagine if you're Microsoft or Sony, right? I mean, you're focused right now on pushing 4K gaming and HDR, and you're pouring all this R&D into more powerful hardware, and then here comes Nintendo and says, here's a mobile console that does 720p in handheld and 1080p on the TV, and then people are just gobbling them up. I mean, they literally can't stock the Switch fast enough.
Yeah, they're selling like hotcakes. I wonder what the numbers look like, if you compared the same time window for Switch versus Xbox One or Switch versus PlayStation 4. Probably doesn't compare. That's my guess. Does anybody know that data?
Yeah, I don't know if they've put that out or not. I know the Switch is doing better than the Wii did when it first came out, which is impressive. But I don't know if anybody's compared it to the Xbox One or PS4.
Yeah, no, and the thing about Nintendo is, I think for a lot of people as well, especially with the young kids and the family, it's a safe family play that kids can enjoy. Like you put a Nintendo console in the living room, you don't have to worry about game ratings and stuff like that so much, right? I mean, if I'm correct, I believe I am. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, Paul. But it's a family-friendly console, and like for example, we have a Wii and we have an Xbox 360 in my family. And they've both been there since day one. We got them both, and the Xbox is there. It's got a library of games, and my daughter, who's 16 now, she'll still have friends over, and they don't play the Xbox anymore. They're still picking up the Wii bowling and golfing, and all this stuff that it's just fun. They're gaming on it because it's just fun to hang out with your friends and do a round of golf or whatever.
Yeah, they hit the mark with the original Wii. I mean, the title they included with the Wii Sports is actually something that they always like to pitch that everybody can play it, the mom and dad and their kids and grandpa, and that really was something that everybody could jump in and play. I mean, we had one for a while, and we'd get up there and compete in baseball and archery or whatever else, and it was fun.
So looking at Kotaku, they've got sales for the first few weeks of PS4 versus Switch. The Switch is ahead, 329,000 to 309,000 on the PS4 week one.
Is that in the U.S. alone, or is that worldwide?
This is, let's see, they're just saying sales.
It sounds like U.S. numbers.
I think this might be Japan.
Oh,
so that could be
still
different, but yeah.
Good watermark there. That's for sure.
The PS4 ones fell off pretty quick. The Switch ones held pretty steady. Looking at week 7, 46,000 sold versus 13,000.
Yeah. No, that's impressive. I mean, geez, you're right, Paul. They're kicking back, going, yeah, we get this, massaged and ironed out platform, Tegra from NVIDIA, and it's not super high performance, but yeah, we just roll this thing out and bang, here you go.
Yeah, I know. Could you imagine if Sony announced the PlayStation 5 based on Tegra? I mean,
it'd be lynched, but Nintendo pulls it off. What would be cool, and I don't know, maybe I'm wishing here, but can we get a motion controller? Can we see a motion controller add-on for this platform moving forward, like the Wii?
Well, it does actually do some motion controls on there. You don't really use it much in Zelda, so I don't know how well it works compared to the Wii, but it does have some motion control in there. And we have a question in the chat asking if the Switch is worth buying over the Wii U.
Yeah.
And I would say yes. I don't see any advantage that the Wii U would have over the Switch. I mean, because the Switch, you can still do 1080p gaming if the games support that on your TV, but you have the added advantage of picking it up and, you know, if you're going on vacation, visiting the in-laws, whatever, pack it away and take it with you. So I would definitely favor the Switch over the Wii U.
Yeah.
The downside is there aren't a lot of games, or at least not a lot of, you know, AAA titles out just yet, but that'll change in time.
Yeah, you got to believe they're selling that many that the games are coming. Not only Nintendo, obviously, who has, you know, some immense resources there to develop games for their platform, but the developers know that there's a healthy install base growing. So they'll be coming too, I would think. I don't think that's going to be an issue. It just might take some time. But cool. All right. Well, anything else to add there, Paul? Words of wisdom for Wii shoppers? How about some buying advice before we move on to the next segment? Any tips on what like must have or whatever?
Case, screen protector, and a memory card are must have. Also, pay attention when you put the wrist straps on the controller. Otherwise, you're going to kick yourself like I did. If you remember on one of the Galaxy, one of the previous Note devices, you could stick the S Pen in backwards and it would get stuck. This is the same sort of thing. You can put the wrist strap on backwards and it goes too far and it gets stuck, and it feels like the only way to get it off is to break it, which is not the case. The way I managed to get it off there was I stuck a paper clip in there and kind of pried where it clips. I pried that back and pushed it down, which I explain in there. And there's also YouTube videos that show how to do that as well. But save yourself the headache and make sure you're putting the wrist straps on correctly. And hopefully, future revisions, they'll make it so you can't put it on backwards for dummies like me.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you. Hey, so let's shift gears to the final segment here and talk about AMD, who has a bunch of new technology on tap, obviously, some of which is shipping, some of which will ship shortly. We are reporting, have been reporting on all of this stuff. More interestingly, in the land of multi-core, many-core CPUs, AMD confirms beastly ThreadRipper 16-core, 32-thread Ryzen enthusiast processor. So we have a little article up on that. Check it out. It's been making a lot of buzz. ThreadRipper, great name, by the way. Love that little brand name. Good job, AMD, for thinking out of the box. Good stuff. Marco, what do you know about this beast 16-core CPU?
So we know a little bit. We don't have final clocks yet. What we do know is that there will be a 16 physical core model, 16 cores, 32 threads. It will require new platform, new socket, with 44 PCI Express lanes, and it's going to be an absolute beast in terms of multi-threaded performance. We already know the Ryzen cores are competitive with Intel in terms of IPC. We know in multi-threaded workloads, current Ryzens are fairly strong, sometimes stronger than Intel with similar clocks and cores, at least versus Broadwell. There are no super large Kaby Lake cores, multi-cores yet. So 16 of these Ryzen cores in a socket is going to be a beastly performer for multi-threaded workloads. If you do any kind of content creation, video editing, 3D rendering, that kind of stuff, going to be a beast. Hopefully AMD prices them competitively like they did with current Ryzen 7 and Ryzen 5s. If they do so, people are going to be able to build some killer monster machines with way more horsepower than you can typically do today.
Yeah. No, so is this an MCM? So eight dual 8-core dies on a package?
I believe so. I'm not 100% certain. I believe you're correct. I'm not 100% certain off the top of my head if it's an MCM. I think it's 2 8-core complexes.
Right.
I believe so. I'm not 100% certain, but I believe that it is. So, I mean, current Ryzen processors, like the 8-core, behave like 2 quad-core complexes. So the 16-core should be like 4 quad-core complexes. So there will be some latency as things bounce between the cores, But as software developers, code around that, those kind of latencies can be hidden in most cases. So it should be, a super killer platform for for professionals or anyone with, not just for professionals. As we move forward, more cores is better, in my opinion. You don't necessarily need a single app that uses all these cores, because all of the stuff running in the background on a PC can use a thread. And as you have more multi-thread applications, those more cores are going to get put to use. So I'm really looking forward to testing these things out.
Yeah, we're gonna be. I'm sorry, Chris. Were you gonna jump in there?
I just said, give me.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. Actually, we're going to get briefed on this, so stay tuned, folks. I believe we're going to hear more from AMD at the end of the month in concert with Computex. And I also believe we have heard a little bit about how it's architected from the folks at AMD. I don't think we're speaking out of turn. I do think it is a dual die MCM, but we were told that the latency between dies shouldn't be anything more than a standard. What's the acronym? I'm forgetting, Marco.
CCX.
CCX. Thank you. A standard CCX hop to get to the from one 8-core complex or dual 8-core complex or dual quad-core complex to the other one. So interesting the way they carved that up, and you can see that it seems like this is I don't know, we're speculating here too, and we'll hear more from AMD directly, but Marco, correct me if I'm wrong, this seems like a derivative of Naples, right? The server platform. Is that maybe fair?
I'm not 100% certain. So Naples is even bigger, and I'm not sure if AMD made a giant monolithic die for Naples, or if it's also an MCM. I'm just not quite sure yet. So, but I believe it's using the socket for Naples though. So it's kind of a cross.
Yeah, 4,000 pin or LAN grid array socket or something like that. Is it LGA? Yeah, I think it is.
I'm not sure. I mean, the other Ryzens are not LGA, so I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah. No. When you get that many pins, oh man, I don't know. I would hope so. We'll see. It's a lot of pins. It's a lot of pins to screw up.
It looks like each die has 8 cores and 2 memory channels. So quad memory channels and 2 8-core die.
Gotcha. Wow. Cool. That'll be fun to see. And then also what's going to be fun to see is when Zen hits notebooks. We're hearing about mobile Zen. We'll be hearing more about that. I think we'll get some more information from AMD shortly, but we have a story up. AMD to marry Zen with Vega for big performance gains in mobile. And so they're going to take their Ryzen architecture and punch in, bolt in, they already have done this, Vega, their next generation GPU architecture. So here we're looking at probably some pretty good gains, especially versus previous generation AMD APUs in the mobile space, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So this, I think, is where AMD has some real opportunity. We don't have final clocks, don't have final data, but what AMD is saying is 50% better CPU performance, 40% better GPU performance at half the power. So that's going to make these chips great for even mainstream gaming, all-in-one PCs, potentially, assuming power is low enough, notebooks that have cutting edge GPUs that are able to game fairly well. These are the kind of setups that AMD could sell a ton of these chips. We know they can make small, fast chips. Look at the consoles. I mean, PS4 and Xbox One are basically custom AMD APUs inside there. So, picture a bleeding edge one inside a notebook, and it's going to have plenty of horsepower for some fun stuff.
Yeah. To answer Blackhawk's question, no one from HotHardware is going to Computex this year. It is always a bone of contention because it's such a haul for us. It's 24 hours of travel, literally, 20 of which is in the air. So it's a long haul. But we expect to hear a lot more from AMD as the end of, as we roll into the end of the month for Computex here. And we will have some stories up for sure covering these in more detail. Man, you think about where AMD came from and how this processor architecture has literally catapulted them on many different platforms into, back into, competitive, alignment versus Intel and relevance again. I mean, when we post something Ryzen on the site, right, or AMD, whether it be Vega or Ryzen or Naples, the traffic meter goes ping pong, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So, I think AMD did a good job. Not that they caught Intel flat-footed, but they really controlled the message with Zen and, dropping that 40% increase. And it made even guys like me believe, 40% IPC increase wasn't going to be enough. So that was a very conservative estimate. It was enough. Right now, if you were to look at, an Intel processor versus a Ryzen, they're very similar in terms of performance, clock per clock and core per core. Where Intel, I don't know where that came from.
I think that was Paul.
Where it might have been.
Where Intel has the advantage is they obviously have a lot more headroom left in their transistors. Current Ryzen processors, you sometimes can't even overclock past the peak XFR frequency, whereas Intel, some of them are hitting 5 gigahertz on air. Yeah. So there's still lots of room for Intel to play and get more aggressive with clocks, and they are a beast, and nobody makes transistors like Intel, so don't be surprised to see something crazy come out of them.
Yeah, we know they're probably watching all of this and readying a response. And that's what's interesting is historically AMD was a couple of generations behind from a process standpoint, and the only way you compete with Intel, sure, you can deliver IPC with great CPU architecture. Architecture is important, but at some point you got to compete with Intel on process, with manufacturing, and they are an absolute, that's why they're affectionately called Chipzilla. They're an absolute beast when it comes to process technology and investment in process technology. So AMD takes their architecture, their new architecture, which was obviously well designed, to 14 nanometer, and now you're toe to toe from a process standpoint as well. And hey, man, it's a good time for the consumer. Great to have some serious competition in this space.
Yep.
Yeah. And Vega, what do we know about Vega? Vega's we saw something on the Vega Frontier Edition. We'll close on that. 13 T-flops, 16 gigabytes of HBM2, shipping in June. Vega, the first AMD Vega card. Is it all that in a bag of chips?
I hope so. Frontier Edition, the AMD Vega Frontier Edition is a pro graphics card. The numbers look impressive. 64 compute units, 13 teraflops of FP32, 25 teraflops of FP16, roughly 90 gigapixels a second of pixel fill rate, with 16 gigs of HBM2 and up to 480 gigabytes a second of memory bandwidth. So those numbers should make it an absolute beast. Again, this isn't the consumer card. AMD is saying that the consumer card will be faster than this. What that means, we're not sure, whether it's software tweaks or actual clock speed tweaks. But in terms of compute horsepower, Vega is a monster. In terms of pixel fill rate, it's kind of in the mix between 1080 and 1080 Ti. So in gaming performance, we're not quite sure where it's going to fall. I'm sure there's some additional mojo in there that AMD hasn't talked about yet. We do have a semi-comprehensive architecture piece up from a few months ago from a briefing we previously had with AMD on how the memory is architected and things like that. But many more details to come, probably right after Computex. I think there's going to be somewhat of a reveal at Computex just to take advantage of the show, and then a much bigger reveal a little later.
Can we extrapolate from the specs of Vega Frontier Edition, 13 T-flops? I don't know if you can do the math on fill rate. How this and the Radeon Technologies group of AMD has said that consumer cards are going to be faster than Frontier Edition, than the Pro card. Right. So can we extrapolate performance versus a 1080 Ti from the numbers we have today? Can we speculate?
So in terms of compute, Vega is faster. So a 1080 Ti is like a 11.3, 11.4 teraflops of FP32, whereas Frontier Edition is 13. In terms of fill rate, though, AMD saying roughly 90 for Frontier Edition, whereas like a 1080 Ti is like 140, 139, or a 1080 though is like 111. Even the 1080 is higher. But again, we don't know what kind of other special sauce is going on in Vega. It's really a cutting edge kind of rethink of an architecture. So it wouldn't be a surprise if there's some secret sauce in there that offsets some of these numbers. So it's really tough to say. The rumors were it was going to fall sort of in line with 1080, but the rumors with Ryzen made you think it wasn't going to be that fast, and it came out and it killed. So who knows if they're kind of controlling the message with Vega as well. It's going to be a really nice GPU, and AMD, regardless of where it falls, whether it's the fastest thing out there or among the top, AMD needs it because the 1080 Ti is like twice as fast as Fiji.
Hey, so they want to
AMD needs something up there
and over deliver. I'm all for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that speaks to leadership, and that's a good point. Under promise or conservative specsmanship, and then delivering more than that. I think if you can do that and execute well with a good performance watermark, that's a great thing to do. Consumers love that. They love getting more for their money than they initially anticipated, perhaps. But it's leadership, and the company clearly right now seems to be, the ship is being steered well, right? I mean, you're getting a lot of really just positive momentum. I mean, I know some of the earnings calls have been a bit of a disappointment, and the street hasn't been kind to them. But I think if we look from just a sheer technology standpoint, what they're doing, how they're executing, the messaging now that we're getting that is clear and not like tap dance marketing. It's like, here's our specs, and then they come out and they deliver to those specs and then some. I mean, that's all great, positive momentum that, AMD, quite frankly, hasn't had that for a while. So I think at the top, whether it be with, the CEO, Dr. Lisa Su, or Raja Koduri and the Radeon Technologies Group, they're being led by the right people now, right?
I think the success that they're showing lately bodes well for current leadership. And we haven't mentioned Epic yet. When Naples comes in for the data center, there's so much opportunity for big bucks there that even if AMD takes a sliver of market share from Intel, they're going to make some big coin in that space. So I personally think things are looking up for AMD. We'll see how things play out in the next few months.
Yeah. And looking up in every category too. It's almost like they just went and hit the reset button.
Right. Yeah. So CPUs obviously look great. GPUs Vega seems really cool. NVIDIA is just firing on all cylinders, though.
Yeah.
So who knows what NVIDIA has in the wings? Like you get the feeling NVIDIA can just turn a key on something crazy in relatively short order. So we'll see how things play out there. I think Vega is going to be a huge upgrade over Fiji, and AMD needs it. So in that regard, it's going to be great. But data center, APUs, CPUs, all looking good right now.
Yeah, if they can get on the map with Vega, right now, obviously, frankly, from a performance enthusiast standpoint, NVIDIA's got them, they've cornered that market, that high end, especially. Certainly from a value perspective, there's a lot of good value with Radeon products. The 580 is a great card in the mid range. If Vega can come out and be successful in its own right versus the previous gen Fiji architecture, and that I would think would be a win, and really just would speak volumes to how they're executing today. We'll have to see.
Yep.
Good stuff. So, hey, let's finish off on the AMD note. And Marco, can you give us a little bit of a hint on what we're brewing for a giveaway? Free stuff. Everybody's radar goes up this month, or next month, actually, June.
Yeah, should be really soon. We are still trying to figure out the fine details. At the very least, it's going to be AMD Ryzen 5 platform for somebody to either upgrade or build their own PC, or potentially, if we round everything up, maybe I'll build a gaming PC and we'll give that away. We're just trying to figure out exactly how it's going to play out. But some AMD goodness coming. And like other giveaways, we're going to keep it super simple. Come by the site, have some fun and chat with other members at Hot Hardware. Maybe share a couple things on Facebook, and you have a chance to win.
Yeah. Last month, we gave away a Razer Stealth. Razer Blade. Now, Stealth is the thin guy. The Blade gaming notebook. And so really nice with I think it had a 1050 on board. beautiful gaming machine. We do this all the time. Almost every month we give away something good. So stop by HotHardware.com. You can find us there on the web. You can find us on Facebook.com/HotHardware, Twitter.com/HotHardware, YouTube.com/HotHardware. We are there now. We used to be Hot Hardware Vids. You can find us there as well. We're all over the web. We have an Instagram. We're Hot Hardware there too. Come check us out. Stuff. Chat with us. Yeah, all the things. Chris, Paul, tell me a joke.
Chris, you're up.
I'm German. I don't know what jokes are.
You said something yesterday, Paul. It was good, but I forget. Something about pasta?
Yeah, I did.
I don't think we can.
It was so funny. Nobody remembered it. So.
Yeah, it's all right. We'll keep the jokes and save them for later. Hey, we did it. Thanks for hanging out with us, folks. Sorry about the live stream yesterday. We will be back again soon with another edition as soon as we get some more fodder, which will be coming, I'm sure, real soon. Lots of stuff coming up for Computex, so make sure you stop by Hot Hardware, check us out, see what we're learning and turning out the door for news and updates with AMD and Intel and all those guys coming soon. That's about it.